What is going on, guys? Today we're gonna be working on this 2014 Chrysler 200, and it has the V6, which is the 3.6. Now this car has a water leak, and so I didn't see any sign from any hose, radiator. Usually they start leaking from the oil cooler, and can cause major problems. You can see water coming down from here. You can see water through here, and if you're not able to find the leak, you can always use one of these. And I got this from Amazon, I believe, a few years ago. So what you do, you find the right fitting, you remove your cap. You can do it on the radiator, or you can do it on the coolant reservoir. And what you do is just pump air. Now it's not building any pressure because it doesn't have any coolant. You can add some coolant and you can see where the water is leaking from. So I know that is coming from here. So in order to get to the oil cooler, you need to remove the intake. So I started by removing the ground, and you're gonna remove this part here. You can loosen it with a flat head screwdriver. Then you can remove this part of the intake, which has a plug here. You're gonna have one of these plastic pins here. Remove that. And then on the back, two brackets that are holding this part. Okay, so now we're ready to remove the intake itself. You have a few plugs that you need to remove. We have one here. We have another one here. You have 2 or 3 vacuum hoses. Put them on side. Just remove them out of the way. Then you're gonna have this bracket here, which I remove the knot that is holding this hose. Then I loosen this bolt here in order to move this bracket. In this case, I didn't have any nuts here, but if you do, just remove them. They should be at 10mm. Now in the front, you're gonna have 2 nuts, which they are 10mm, and then you can lose the bracket from the bottom. And then you are ready to remove the intake. So you're gonna have you're gonna have 7 8mm bolts holding the intake. There's 1, there are 2 more, 2 more, there are 2 more. So there's 2, 4, 6, 7. Yeah, I believe there's 7. Once you lose those, once you got those loose, remove the intake, put it aside. Now we're gonna disconnect the injectors and the ignition coils. put them aside. Now the back side, same thing. Also, you need to remove the fuel line, which you just press this green clip and then just pull back on the fuel line. And then you're gonna have eight 8mm bolts holding this piece of the intake. Once you loosen those, you can remove this part. And then there's very important. It is very important that you cover the intake. You don't want to get anything inside there, because then you're gonna have major problems later. So now we have the oil cooler here, and then I'm gonna show you where the leak is. You see those bubbles? That's where the leak is. So we're gonna have to remove this oil cooler, and we're gonna have to replace it. To remove the oil cooler, we're gonna have to disconnect these two sensors, and then there's a water hose here. The oil cooler, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bolts, which they are E8. When you got those loose, disconnect these two plugs, and it should be able to take it out. Okay, so here I have the oil cooler, and I thought I was gonna see a hole or a rupture or a crack, but I think it's just leaking from here. But still, I'm gonna replace it, get a new one. I think I'm gonna get it from Amazon, because I called the auto parts and they said that it was $300. On Amazon it's like, can find one for like $50. Alright guys, so I just received the oil cooler, and I do recommend getting the upper and the lower intake gasket. That way you don't have any problems later on. It just comes in a regular box, and here we have the oil cooler. Obviously it comes with the oil filter, and comes with the oil pressure temperature sensor, and the oil comes with the oil pressure sensor and the oil temperature sensor as well. So let's go ahead and take everything out of the way, put the new oil cooler, and put everything back together. Okay, so here I have both of them, just comparing, and this one is a little bit of an upgrade, because it doesn't have this part here, which also has a gasket, and I believe this is the one that failed. So this one just have the gasket on the holes. So I guess it's a little bit better than the original one, I guess. So I got everything out of the way, and now I'm going to try to clear most of the water and oil, clean everything here, so we can put the new oil cooler. Okay guys, now if you have a scraper, you can try to clean the intake area as much as possible, and also you can use the wire brush, or you can use a sandpaper to try to clean it off. Okay guys, so now everything's clean. Now we're ready to put the oil cooler in, and I'm gonna go ahead and start by putting the water hose first, and then we're gonna connect the two sensors, and then we're gonna screw it back in. So we have these two caps, we're gonna remove them, and I always try to use some oil or WD-40, that way the hose can slide easily, and also on this gasket here. Got the hose ready, and now let's go ahead and screw it back. Then we're gonna let's go ahead and connect the two sensors. Make sure you hear that click, and then let's go ahead and screw it back. With your E8, let's go ahead and do it by hand first. Okay, so now the oil cooler is ready. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to add some coolant, and hopefully we're gonna have any leaks. And if you have one of these tools, you can go ahead and test it like the way we did earlier. And as you can see, we have some pressure, and we don't have any leaks from here. That was the leak was coming from here on the old one. And also you gotta make sure that you don't have any leaks on the water hose, and I believe we are ready to go. So now we're gonna remove the old gaskets, and we're gonna go ahead and put the new one in, and that's why I recommend getting new gaskets, because if you put them like this, you might have a vacuum leak, and to remove them you can get a pick or small flathead screwdriver, or in this case I'm using a razor blade to remove them. And you can go ahead and put the new ones in. So you're gonna have, on this case I got two, and they are colored, so but the shape is different, so you won't have any problems. So the green ones go here, and the blue ones they go on top. Okay, so as you see, I have the new one, and as you can see the shape, and just slightly press it and we're good to go. Now let's go ahead and put the blue ones, so we can go ahead and put the lower intake. Okay, get the upper gaskets on, and I'm gonna go ahead and remove the towels from the intake. Okay, now we can go ahead and put the lower intake. And let's go ahead and screw it back with the 8mm socket. Now always starting by hand. And then you can slightly use your impact, and then I always do that at the end. I just make sure that they all are tied with my ratchet. Okay, you can put a towel here, just in case you won't get nothing inside the intake. And now that they are all tied, you can go ahead and connect everything back. We have the injectors, a fuel line, and after that we're ready to get the upper side of the intake. Now this is the last chance you're gonna get if you want to replace some of your spark plugs or an ignition coil. I do recommend, if you are already doing this, go ahead and replace your spark plugs. Depends on how long ago you did a maintenance. But if you are already on this part, but if you are already here, I do recommend changing them. That way you don't have to remove the intake. You won't have to remove this, just in case that you need to replace the spark plugs. You only need to remove the upper intake. Okay, so now we're ready to put the upper side of the intake. Now let's go ahead and tie the bolts. And now, as you can see, the good thing is that you have to replace one of the three that are in the back side of the engine. You can just remove this back side of the intake, and you can access the ignition coils or even the spark plugs. Okay, I'm done with the upper side of the intake, and just gotta make sure that you got the brackets in place, front and the back one. And let's go ahead and put everything back together, connect sensors, vacuum hoses, and we should be ready to start the car. Okay guys, got everything back together, everything is connected. So next thing, if you haven't had any antifreeze, go ahead and add antifreeze. Now if you want, you can add some oil to the oil filter, because you know it's gonna be dry in here. But if not, that's okay. Maybe you're gonna get the oil light on for a few seconds. But let's go ahead and start the car. Put your heater on, and let's wait for all the bubbles to get out of the cooling system, and we're gonna go ahead and drive it, see how it does. Now you might see vapor coming out from there. I don't know if you can see it. Starting to come out, but if you do, that's okay. That's all the antifreeze and all the oil that it was left on there. So let's just wait till everything gets evaporated. Now if you see more antifreeze down there, then maybe you have another problem, but everything seems to be good. Now let's just wait for the thermostat to open up, and so we can go ahead and give it a test drive. Now you gotta make sure that you have your heater on and have heat coming out of your vents. That means that we are on the right track. Now this is kind of weird, because last winter I came to check this car because the heater wasn't working. I checked everything, blend doors, actuators, and everything seems to be working. So my thinking was that the heater core was damaged, but I don't know, maybe with this overheating that they did on the car helped the heater core. I don't know, but I'm starting to feel some heat coming out of the vents, so hopefully they have heater. I'm starting to see some bubbles still coming out. We should have some air coming out of the coolant reservoir. I believe that the thermostat is about to open, or it's already open. Let's just wait a few more minutes so we can go ahead and give it a test drive. Okay, we have reached normal temperature. Let's go ahead and put the cap back on the reservoir, and we can go ahead and test drive it. Alright guys, well I just came back from test driving the car. Everything's fine. Fans are working. Temperature normal. And I don't have any leaks anywhere. Well, but that's it for this video guys. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you on the next video.